Can you tell us your name?
My name is PJ Lawless.
And your school you went to?
I went to Killalaghton school.
And what years you were in school?
From 1943 to 1952.
Can you tell us about all the plays in your school, in your old school?
I'll go away with that. I wouldn't. That's a question now that spreads out over an awful lot of years. And really, the most thing I was involved in there would be in the children's concerts at Christmas time.
And do you know the names of them? Some of them.
Some of them. One particular funny one that I remember anyway was one I took part in. We had a trio of Dermot Donohoe, Patsy Cormack and myself. And Dermot was the cock. And Patsy Cormack was the chicken. And I was the mother hen. But we were all dressed up as we were quite identifiable. And the chicken was completely covered in cotton wool. There was a cotton wool frame made from, and it was actually sprayed yellow. So he was a very young chicken. But along with that, we recited a history of our development as cocks and hens and chickens. And the piece was written, as far as I was aware, by the principal in Capitaglow School here at the time, a fellow by the name of Anthony Monaghan. He wrote a lot of humorous stories that basically based on local occurrences at the time, I suppose.
Can you remember any stories from your school days?
Plenty stories. We had, I was extremely lucky when I think about it, because we had a school principal of Josie O'Halloran, and Miss McDonald was our teacher in we'll say infants in first class, second and third, and in fourth year then you went out the master side. Fourth and fifth and sixth were taught by the principal. It was just a two-teacher school at the time. But they were, as far as I remember anyhow, they were excellent teachers. And so does everybody else think so as well. But the principal had a marvellous ability to promote local interest in the area. As from what I was told over the previous years, I didn't go to school until 1943. But prior to that, they had built a local community hall. If you go up there now, you'll see it with Killalaghton printed up over the door. It's also used at the moment for the same hall as a preschool. And they're still carrying on the good traditions up there. But at that time, that particular man, he promoted an awful lot of community effort and community involvement. The hall was built from the information and the stories I had heard. Every bit of sand was drawn by the horse and cart. That was done by local people over from Coleman's Sandpit. It was a half a mile over the road, and that time they dug out all the sand with the pick and the spade and the druid for the construction of the hall. But the hall was opened in 1938, wasn't it, or 1939? 1939 it was opened. And along with that, he was very much into Irish Gaelic tradition. All your subjects were taught through the medium of Irish. Today, they do an awful lot of talking about Irish schools, but that was an Irish school then. Totally Irish. The only thing that was taught through the medium of English was the English language. History was taught through the medium of Irish. It was mainly Irish history. There was a huge emphasis on any of the rebellions that took place in Ireland over the previous 200 or 300 years. But the principle was very much pro-Irish in all things. Along with that, he did a huge amount of practical things. There was, I'd say, I never measured it for anything else now, but there was a playground developed there, about 3 acres, I'd say, in size. It was bought from a local farmer. And actually, the farmer was a bachelor man. No, he wasn't a man that had family of his own or anything. But the site for that playground was bought from a man by the name of Thomas Fahey, otherwise nicknamed as Boyle. I don't know how you spelt the word Boyle now, whether it was B-I-L-E or B-O-I-L, but everybody was christened. Everybody had nicknames, from funny ones to crass ones, we'll say. But that playground was developed and a plantation put all around it. I know that's where we all learned our hurling and our sport and our games. At different years, in going to school, he'd have an emphasis on different sports. There was a number of years, I remember, where he had a serious emphasis on athletics, such as sprinting and running and all descriptions, high jump, long jump, you name it, triple jump, all those things. And he used to bring overloads in the car to those sports. I remember I was on that selection at different stages. And there were some marvellous athletes up there during my time now, such as PJ Cormacan, Dermot Donohoe, Michael Kearns. Those fellas were fabulous athletes, once they had a bit of opportunity. And they proved it because they were able to pull off regular firsts in different athletic competitions. Over the years, he concentrated on different things. Once they had the hall built, and I believe prior to that, he used to run a Christmas concert and play. And he had different sections in it. But he always had a section for children's concert. That's where I became involved in the chicken and the egg and that particular piece. But he had people that were very good on musical instruments, everything from the tin whistle to the xylophone to the accordion and the fiddle. He was an all-round musician himself, that principal teacher. But he certainly spread his knowledge among the pupils, especially anyone that was willing to learn, or anyone that had an aptitude for certain things. But he'd have a section over the Christmas. In order to put it in a broad term, it was run for the whole week of Christmas, to be run from Christmas Day to New Year's Day. He always had the 2 Sunday nights plus the 6 nights of the week. They'd run for 8 nights, and the hall would be booked out. All the bookings were done in the local shop, which was Fahy's at the time. And there was a woman there by the name of Maudie Fahy. Maudie did all the bookings. And a huge amount of support for that play and concert would be coming from both Bannislow and Loughrea. They had no production like he was able to put on. You couldn't believe the simple little things he was capable of putting together. He had a series of slides at the front of the stage, and he could change the colours anywhere from red, blue, green by just pulling a slide. He had so many bulbs in front of it, and he just pulled the slide and to change the whole colour of the stage. The hall was also decorated from one end to the other with Christmas lighting of one description or another, and he had a whole series of I'd say there were about 4 or 5 lights hanging from the ceiling, but he had a big lantern that he just pulled up over those for the Christmas, and those were taken down and folded and put away again until the following Christmas, because I'd say we were going to plays for maybe 25 years, and it was the very same lanterns that went up every year. Along with that, he had electricity in it before there was electricity anywhere. He had some sort of little petrol engine out the back, or it could be paraffin oil. I don't know what he ran it on, to be honest about. But he had electricity generated from there for any kind of functions. Along with that, he had what was the Ballroom of Romance in our area at that time. He had a monthly dance. Now, when I say he was just the driving force behind everything that went on, because he had at least 20 people that were enthusiasts as well as himself. And they did the doors, they parked the bicycles. I won't say cars, because cars were very rare at the time, but he'd have a dance in that hall every month. I don't know, was it the first Friday night or the first Sunday night of every month? And the women got away with bloody hell that time, because he used to charge the men £0.5 to go into the dance, but he'd let the women in for 2 shillings, which was less. £0.5 was worth 2 and 6pence at the time. That was in old coinage. So they were getting 25% off. But he promoted a fabulous tradition up there, and there's you know where the children's the preschool is run now. All the little lawns he had. He was big into the flowers. There were some fabulous photographs of flowers, though. Lupins and tulips and pansies and you name it. And the one thing we used to hate in relation to that was the weeding, because every so often he'd shut down the school at 2 o'clock, and he'd bring, we'll say, 5th and 6th class, anyway down, to go weeding. Nobody liked it. And he also squared out, you got about maybe 2 square yards, if you can imagine what 2 square yards is. About that length by, sized in 2 tables. And he might put two kids weeding that. And you get your half hour or whatever it was, and you come back and inspect it. And you might get a little tweak in the look. Did you see that one? If you left a few weeds after you. But he could even have a little competition, and you might get a long tom or something, if you won it. Or a little bag of long toms. The sweets were very scarce. Along with that, we had an awful lot of fun. Hurling, I remember myself and the brother, and we'd be over there in the school. It wasn't open till 9 o'clock in the morning. But we'd be over there at the school, and we'd have 3/4 of an hour hurling done before the school starts in the morning. And he'd always come walking, but there'd be a look out, and when he didn't mind, never minded us at all playing hurling in the mornings. But in bad weather, mucky weather, he didn't want us coming in. That'd be in summertime. Be on our bare feet, and there was an old pump. I won't say it was an old pump now, it was traditional pump type, where you pump the handle. But we'd all scuttle for the pump and stick the legs in under it and wash them. We all had short pants. Short pants and no shoes, so all you did was wash it. You had socks and everything clean, and rub the water off before you went to the school. But we had a fabulous time in that school. And then politics got involved, and they decided we had to have a central school, and the school was transferred down here. The new school was built here, and it's that way since. And thanks be to God, it's flying it. It's a good school, we have good teachers, or so I'm told anyway. And just in passing, I'd like to mention, he always had a cane, but was never used unless you were caught telling lies. And if you were caught telling lies, you definitely get 2, and you could get 3 or 4, depending on the severity of those lies. But I never saw him using the rod for lessons. And I still go to school for, I was about 16, I'd say it could be 10 or 11 years going to school. Because I never graduated. That was my graduation. And that's basically the story of my school life.